Welcome to another episode of The Pitch. I am your host, Jarrod from Nova 919, and I'm sure you've just finished watching last week's episode because my interview with Tarek Elrich went for so long. So we're going to keep this one a little bit shorter today. I'm very excited because we get to go to the last line of defence and find out who looks after the goalkeepers here at your Adelaide United. So please, everybody in here, there's a cameraman, there's myself and Peter himself. Peter Blazincic, put your hands together, everyone. You can clap for yourself, mate. Lovely to meet you. This is the first time I've met you, so it's a real pleasure actually for myself because we don't get to chat to people like you a lot of the time. We have the front man or the media guys and the players getting real exposure around Adelaide United. So the great thing about the pitch is that we get to talk to people like you about what goes on behind the scenes, and especially with the great goalkeeping lineup we have at the club. So before we get into finding out how we're going so far this pre-season and what you're most looking forward to, can you give us a little bit about your backstory and how you ended up being here at Adelaide United?
Well, I obviously played for quite a few years with West Adelaide and then moved over to Sydney for a couple of years. From there, moved to China, played there for 2 years, came back into Sydney and then made my way back to Adelaide. Started coaching probably about 34. So 10 years now, Adelaide United. So from the onset,
yeah.
A year before that, I did a year with Petrillo down at Raiders.
Great. Now, the first question I want to ask is what is wrong with goalkeepers? Because your job is to say, guys, kick the ball at me as hard as you can. Is there a chemical imbalance in the makeup of a goalkeeper, or is this something that they just go, I decide to be a goalkeeper and it's my chosen profession? It's like the drummer of a band. You know, it's the most dangerous gig, but it's also probably the most unrewarded.
We think it's the most important position.
Of course.
Because obviously you can see goals, you lose games. So for us, it's as important as a striker scoring goals.
What happens then, because we're so fortunate here at Adelaide United, if you go back through our history, I mean, Beltrami and Bajic, and now we've got Galakovic, we've had Birigidi, and we've got Izzo, and then Big John Hall. We'll get to them in a second, but we have been blessed to have so many amazing goalkeepers come to this club. Are they as popular as, I guess, a striker position where when kids are growing up, they generally go, well, I personally, I either want to score goals or get the ball as much as possible. How does it all begin where someone growing up goes, no, I decided that I want to be a keeper?
Well, just saying that, I think a lot of the kids now look up to Eugene as a massive role model, and I think he has converted a lot of kids to want to be keepers. So I think the public look at it both ways. I think if you're a hero, regardless of your position, I think they sort of support you and follow you.
Now, Peter, I'm going to reveal something here. I am the worst soccer player ever. I'm even bad on video games. And if I was to play just a social game, I'm the guy who runs behind the crowd when they say, can we please have a goalkeeper? I'm that guy. Okay. So you're not that guy. You've made a career based around goalkeeping. What actually made you decide to want to get into this field?
I think, I started at 7, so it's not something you decide on. It's just how it works. Kids rotating goals, and if you do well, then you sort of get stuck in goals. So that's how it started for me.
Ball ever hit you in the face?
Oh, a few times.
I'm scared because if it hits me in the nose, I've got a massive nose, so it'd be really bad, and I'd probably have to get a nose shot. What else are you doing off the field? Because you can, I guess, get consumed with coming into the club, and it can almost become an obsession, which I guess in some instances it needs to be. But what do you do outside of football?
Well, it's only really been a part-time job probably for 3 years that I've been here. A full-time job. I'm a builder by trade, so I've got a building company that we obviously do commercial and domestic.
What's it called? Give it a plug, mate.
Blazincic Constructions.
Great.
So the money hasn't quite been in football to pursue it as a full-time career. It's starting to go that way, which is good, which means I can put the tools down permanently, maybe.
Can you talk to us about some of the players that are at Adelaide United at the moment? We've got so much national experience there with Eugene, who's part of the campaign for next year in Rio, and then we've got Izzo, who's gone to represent the Socceroos, like the young Socceroos once again. How fortunate we are to have such an experienced goalkeeping lineup. Is this something you've seen before in your time as looking after the goalkeepers, of how blessed we are?
The common denominator is the coach. I think, look, they do work hard, and that's the emphasis of our training. Izzo went through obviously the AIS system, which he was picked up quite young. Still yet to make a name, I guess. He's been in, you can play in those younger, under 20s, 22s, but it really is until you get an A-League contract and feature in the A-League. So Birigitti's an example of that. You really need to play games to be actually known as a good keeper in the A-League, obviously.
Do you find that keepers now have probably the most longevity in their careers as well? As we have a look over to the EPL and we see our current Socceroos keeper in Mark Schwartz, he's just signed on with Chelsea as a backup keeper, but he will definitely be used because of the amount of games they play over in Europe. But, he's pushing quite age if you're looking at an elite sport level. But for keepers, if you maintain injury-free and fit, there is a really long career in your path.
I think it's more experience. Like, you get young keepers that can make the big saves, but they're not consistent. And I think as a coach, you'd rather someone that gives you 80%, 85 each game, than be fluctuating between 50 and 100. Because you don't know what you're going to get, do you, as a coach? You might win you a game, lose you two. So I think most coaches go for the senior keeper, the experience of understanding how the game works, tactical. So a young keeper might just be concerned about what he does, but isn't able to communicate the right instructions to the rest of the team. So probably that's the reason.
Last year I was fortunate to play in the WAGs versus Celebrity Females game, and I was representing...
I unfortunately did see a bit of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But before I actually stood in the goals, and I think I broke my finger as well, which is really weird because it's my wedding ring finger, so I can't wear my wedding ring, and my missus loves that. I didn't realise how challenging and demanding it is to be standing there and have the balls pinged at you. But also, if you're sitting in the crowds and you're having a look at the space that you need to cover, from the sidelines it doesn't look that big. But what sort of training then does Eugene and the other keepers in the squad have to do different to the other players in the team to really make sure that their reflexes are firstly up there, but they've also got to cover a fair bit of ground?
Positioning is probably the critical one. You need to be in the right position to have a chance to make the save, and that includes the lateral movement and also depth. So if you're out of position, it's going to be easy for a good striker to just find the back of the net. And obviously the other one, reflexes, it's just something you condition to. So if you just keep working at a high speed, and I look to do it above game speed. So training's above game speed, and when you come to the game and there's all the pressures of the game, you might only be able to get 80% of what you're capable of in that environment. So.
Are there any different skills at training that you have to do as a keeper to work on those reflexes? I mean, when the guys are training away from the main group, is it just having balls kicked at them at high intensity, or are there other little things that they need to do to develop in training?
Well, there's technique. That's a critical one. So it isn't just the ball speed, but having the correct technique for every action. So we work a lot on that. So it's positioning, ball speed, technique, right technique for each shot, and that's repetition. You just do it over and over again until it becomes natural, and until I don't have to say it again.
Being a United supporter and being to basically every home game over the past 10 years of this Hyundai A-League, one of the things I've always wanted to ask you, and I'm glad I get the opportunity to today, would it be frustrating for a player like Izzo to sit on the sidelines and be a backup keeper during the game? And as I said before, we've seen players like Birighitti when he got his chance, but now, he's a first choice keeper. And through the lines, and even talking about Eugene on a national level where he's representing the Socceroos, to sit back and wait for your turn, because time moves on and so does your career, and you want to make the most of every opportunity that's there and not just sit there waiting.
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, you're hopeful, I think. It's not like a player where the coach can say, we're winning 3-0, go and have the last 20 minutes, enjoy yourself and work you into the game. With the keeper, it's you're either in or you're not in. And the one time a year something goes wrong and you get a chance, and then you've got to step up. And generally that's quite hard to do, because a keeper sort of works himself in over 5 games. So the difficulty is, as a reserve keeper, there's a suspension or injury, you're in, and you got 90 minutes to make something happen and make a name for yourself. So it is quite difficult, and that's the reason Birigidi left, obviously.
And watching a couple of the Youth League games last year, say for instance that there was an opportunity for Eugene to go and represent internationally or play in another league, and Izzo steps up. Having John Hall there as another backup and seeing his performances in the Youth League, that also must make you feel pretty good that he's there as well, you know, learning constantly and also performing quite well.
Yeah, we're pretty blessed. We've got, I think if you pick the 3 keepers we've got, you wouldn't exchange him for anyone in the league. So I think we're privileged to have a good first, second and obviously third choice keeper. And we've got some young kids coming up as well. We've got Daniel McGush coming up. We've got Jackson who's coming up as well. So there's a couple of young kids that we pick up early. That's probably been the difference in the last 5 years. We're picking them up at 16, and then by 18 they sort of are pretty close to what we want.
Okay, I need to get a silly question out of the way because I wouldn't be doing the interview if there wasn't a silly question allowed. What has been the funniest mistake you have seen a goalkeeper make in your history of being involved in football? It could be slipping over when he's going for the goal kick or just missing the easiest save possible. Have you got one that stands out?
You wouldn't know the guy, but it was back when I was in the junior days. So I think it was under 18s, and a goalkeeper's kicked a long ball, and it's gone right, and it was with the wind, it's gone right into our half, and it was one of our keepers who went to catch the ball. It's gone through his hands, bounced between his legs, gone under him and bounced over the goals.
Let's hope that doesn't happen this season for Adelaide United. It's been a couple of games so far in the pre-season. There was an absolute domination earlier in the week.
Yep.
What have been your views so far, how we're shaping for 2013-14?
We're looking okay. There's a lot more to do, obviously. I think Giuseppe is happy with the progress, but obviously it's not perfect. So I think we'll just keep working away, and it's not just about the goals, it's about not conceding goals and controlling the game.
Great. Well, Peter, we really appreciate your time, mate. Good luck for the whole season. Let's hope we see Eugene there all the time, but also if there's an injury or he gets a call up somewhere else, we're pretty lucky to have some other great keepers there. So, mate, thank you very much. And don't forget, you can always tweet us or get on our Facebook page, ask any question you want. Share this video. We want to pump up as much exposure for your Adelaide United this season as possible in the Hyundai A-League. This is another episode of The Pitch, and we'll catch you next time.